What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Pick Six podcast. I am your co-host today. I'm not just Brinson's sidekick today. I'm the co-host. And today we have an awesome show because since the Bengals are in the Super Bowl, it still is unbelievable to say that. We have an awesome show because we are going to rehash the Bengals' prior trips to the Super Bowl. And we brought on two very, very special guests. The only Bengals player in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, Anthony Munoz, is here to talk about Super Bowl memories and this year's Super Bowl team. And we also have my dad, the Bengals' all-time leading scorer, Jim Breech, to talk about the prior Super Bowls, Evan McPherson, everything. We're going to touch on this year's Bengals team. We're going to touch on the Bengals teams of Super Bowl past. We're going to touch on everything, I promise. Anthony, first, thanks for coming on, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. I tell you what, not only am I thrilled to be on the show with you two, but as you mentioned, we got the all-time leading scorer. We got my good friend, my golf coach, Jim. It's good to be on with you, man.
With you, Ant, too.
Well, Dad, thanks for coming on, although I would have been kind of heartbroken if you had said no to me.
Yeah, but if Anthony come on and not me, you still would have been okay.
Well, it's worth pointing out, by the way, John Breech is so used to me doing the intro that you didn't even say, hi, this is John Breech. But we said, hey, do you think your dad would do the podcast? You're like, absolutely. And then Jim was like, hey, would you like to have Anthony Munoz on as well? And we were like, yes, we would for the Bengals in the Super Bowl. I mean, I'm curious what, just from your guys' perspective, like how this run, because it feels like it changes everything. I mean, getting to the playoffs is great, but the way Joe Burrow handles himself and the way that the Bengals have just it's like a different team and a different franchise. It's like a throwback to when y'all were playing, that this team like has this aura about it, this confidence that maybe it didn't have over the last few years. Is that a real thing kind of rolling through the franchise in the city?
I'll just say something real quick. I had a buddy of mine, high school buddy, been texting me, and he's like, congratulations. I'll have to root for the Rams. And I said, well, it's good. You're going to be rooting for the second place team. And so I've been going back and forth. And he said, well, the Titans gave it to the Bengals and the Chiefs gave it to the Bengals. He goes, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. And I said, wait. I said, luck had nothing to do with it. This team is good. It's got some great camaraderie, and it has some resilience and some grit. I said it has to do with beating the Titans and the Chiefs, and that's what's been so fun about this team is they're not only exciting to watch, man, but they're never out of a game.
To that point, I don't remember probably going back to our teams in the 80s where we had teams that were this mentally tough. You see the Steelers somehow. How they get in the playoffs this year, you don't know, but somehow they're mentally tough. They find a way to win, or the Baltimore Ravens in our division, or New England. I mean, they should never have gotten down, gotten back to as close as they did against the Rams, but somehow they find a way. And that's what this team is mentally tough, unlike any team that Marvin Lewis had previously. This team it perseveres, and they make adjustments, and they're just tough, and every time you expect them to lose, and every time they turn around and make huge plays. And I think the thing is the defense has stepped up. It hasn't been just the offense; it's really the defense.
Exactly.
Stepping up late in games has made a huge difference.
It's amazing, Jim. You mentioned the confidence. It's just amazing. People ask me before the Raiders playoff game. They say, "So what about the lack of playoff experience with this team?" I said, it doesn't matter. I said, the way I look at these guys are so confident in themselves and so confident in themselves as a team that they're just out there having fun. And like you said, they just believe they can win.
And kind of on that note, real quick, let me ask you this, and you guys can both answer this. And I'll ask you first, Anthony. Was there a specific game this year that you watched and you thought, wow, this team could play with anyone? Maybe they're not a Super Bowl contender just yet, but maybe this team's a lot better than I think everyone thought they were.
It's funny because Jim knows I do the preseason games, and I'm down at camp several times. And I went down about 2 or 3 times, and this was in camp. And usually I look at just interaction. I look kind of enthusiasm and what they're doing. I left after doing the preseason games, and I was reading, people are saying, well, this team might win 4 or 5 games. I've been saying since August that this team was capable of winning 10 games. I just saw something special with these guys. I didn't know what 10 games would get them. I wasn't thinking Super Bowl, but I really believe when I saw them that they had put together pieces where they could compete with anybody in the league. And I think during the season, even though they had, they went to the Jets and there's certain games, but they'd always come back and beat teams that they shouldn't. So I felt that they could play with just about anybody and beat any team during the season, watching them throughout the season.
To pick a specific game, I would say the first Baltimore game when they scored 41 points on them, because you have to beat the teams in your division. And they'd beaten Pittsburgh, but, they beat Pittsburgh at the end of last year, and Pittsburgh offensively was really struggling. But Baltimore was – they're leading the AFC at that, pretty much at that point. And the Bengals just blew them out of the stadium, in their stadium. And at that point, I'm thinking this team is for real.
Yeah, I mean, and they swept the Ravens too. Also took down the Chiefs at the end of the season, and I think that's that obviously has confidence when you go and match up against the Chiefs again in the AFC Championship game. Anthony, I'm curious your thoughts on not just what happened in the AFC Championship game, and Jim, of course, you too, but also what was really impressive. I believe you mentioned, Anthony, the adjustments you see from the defense and sort of what they're doing. Like, they completely changed what kind of defense they were playing against Mahomes at halftime. Like, Lou Anarumo did flip the game script all over Mahomes, and they scored 3 points. They had one drive over 20 yards. What was that like watching it as someone who roots for the Bengals? And does that sort of schematic adjustment? Do you think that's something that this team has in its pocket?
Well,
right?
Yeah, it's done it, not just that game. And Jim made the comment, it wasn't just the offense. So much attention is paid to Joe Burrows and Jamar Chase and Boyd and Higgins. But in an AFC Championship game, you're ahead in your home stadium, and Jim knows as well as I do how tough Arrowhead Stadium can be to play in. And to come out and for Mahomes to throw for 80 yards, that was just a stellar performance by the defense. And sure, again, like I said, you got to score points to win the game. But when you hold an offense like that to 80 yards passing, kudos to Lou and the defense. And the pass rush, which the first half, I don't know about you, Jim, but I'm sitting there in the first half to myself going, where is the pass rush?
Yeah, really.
Where is the pass rush? Come on, you can't let them sit there all day long and throw. And then the second half, man, they had them flustered. They were putting pressure, and the coverage was amazing. Just the adjustments they made was so much fun to watch.
The other thing I took from that was, you make an adjustment like that, you have to be disciplined. And what you shows is they have really smart guys that are all on the same page, and they respect what's going on with the defensive coordinator. They're making an adjustment that is kind of unusual. We're going to rush 3 guys. We're going to have 1 spy, and then we're going to basically drop 8, and it's probably going to give them more time to throw, and we're still going to go play and give up 80 yards passing, 3 points. Unbelievable. And the play that Sam Hubbard made toward the end of the game when he was spying, and he just flies up the field and ends up knocking the ball loose from Mahomes. It was a great job on Anarumo's play in his case, but also in the way the defense, the way they played so consistently.
It looked like Jesse Bates borderline tipped that ball, almost purposely tipped it to Eli. Yeah. Eli Apple who intercepted it?
Von Bell.
Or Von Bell. Yeah.
I believe he did. Because if you look at it, he just kind of tips it back because I'm sure he saw Bell running toward him. And I guarantee you these guys do tip drills all the time. Defensive players are constantly practicing that.
Because the way he did it was between the receiver's hands. It was almost like you're setting it up in volleyball, and you watch the replay. You're like, did he mean to tip? That's a crazy heads up play. If so,
yeah, and he hasn't got near the credit he should have for that play.
Yeah, and you mentioned Eli Apple, Brinson. He was someone who struggled, but he also made one of the biggest plays of the game right before halftime when he tackled Tyreek Hill. I told Brinson on Monday, the day after the game, that if the Chiefs score a touchdown there, I put a fork in the Bengals season. I was no confidence in them coming back from 28-10. So what were you guys kind of thinking there with the first half, the Chiefs just moving up and down the field with no trouble?
Yeah, for me, I mean, that was a big play. But I had, as someone watching the Chiefs, I had no problem with them trying to go for it because everybody's like, they should have kicked them. I said, because you're doing anything you want in the first half, I thought that was a good call, man. Little did I know that, any of us know that the 3 points would be the difference if they kicked it. But I had no problem with them going for it. I mean, the play that they ran, maybe, but not the fact that they went for it.
Yeah, that was pretty amazing that he didn't throw the ball into. If he throws, they have to make a quick throw, 5 seconds, a quick throw. Then they can kick the field goal if they want to.
Yeah.
But he throws a wide pass and then tries to call timeout with no timeouts left too.
Yeah.
So, and Andy Reid.
Yeah, right. He went full Chris Webber. He's doing
So I mean, it all backfired, and really that was probably when the tide turned.
Now, and obviously going to the Super Bowl because of that win. And, a lot of times I don't think people know this, that, NFL players will live in the city where they're playing and then bolt as soon as the season's over, make a home somewhere else. Well, we have two guys on this podcast who have been lifelong Cincinnatians since their career started. Anthony's from California, but been in Cincinnati ever since being drafted in 1980. And my dad was also from California and been in Cincinnati ever since his career started with the Bengals. And so you guys know, there aren't many ex-players or really anyone in Cincinnati can appreciate what's happening more than you two. What has it been like the past 5 days, just seeing the city celebrate the team getting to the Super Bowl? Anthony, you go first.
Well, yeah, John, I don't know about Jim. Jim, you might feel, but for me, it's not just been the last 5 days. Prior to the first playoff game against the Chiefs, against the Raiders of course, we've been here 42 years now because Jim got here in 80, I got here in 80. And when we're out in public, we hear a lot of who days. But prior to the Raiders game, I've never heard so many who days from kids, it doesn't matter the age. Everyone, when they see me, it's who day. So not only since we've won going to the Super Bowl, but it's been that way before the Raiders game, after that victory, before. So it's been, this whole city has been in a buzz. And even now that we're going to the Super Bowl, man, it is going crazy. It's so much fun to be out. I'm kind of sad that the roads are iced over and we can't be out today because I've made a point, and I have a lot. Jim knows I have a lot of Bengal gear. I mean, I'm a hat collector, and since they've won, I've worn a something Bengals every day, and I'll continue to do that. I'm going to put Bengal polos in my bag when I go out west. I'll be sporting the Bengal stuff even out in California.
The exciting thing I find is we got the experience in 81 and 88, how the city responded. I mean, it was amazing. In 81, we come back from beating the Steelers to win the Central Division at that time, and there's 10,000 people at the airport meeting us. I mean, that just blew us away. So all we've ever wanted as former players is to have the current players get to experience what the city's like when you're going through what we went through, and they're experiencing it. But I think that win against the Raiders, I mean, that place was absolutely bonkers, and it was so great. And it was like, we believe we can win. We won a playoff game. We believe in Joe Burrow. We believe in what Taylor's putting together. We're starting to believe in these guys. And every week they're doing something to make us believe a little bit more.
It's funny you mentioned, if I can just add one more thing.
Oh, no, you can add whatever you want.
You mentioned Jim and myself living here since our career. One of the things, doing the preseason games, I go down to camp, and usually I'm asked to speak to the guys. And one of the first things I tell the team when I talk to them is that you have, as players now, exactly what Jim's talking about. I tell them, you have a lot of former players that live in Cincinnati, and we're big fans. We want the best for you guys. And then what Jim said, we want you to experience winning, getting to the playoffs, and hopefully getting to the Super Bowl, because we have a chance to experience that. And we've seen the city when that happens, and we want you guys. So I always share that with them. Big fans, guys that played here, we're rooting for you. We want the best, and we want you to experience in Cincinnati because it's such a great sports town.
Well, I was going to say it. So there's a Pick Six podcast Twitter account, right? And we don't run it. Like, I don't run it. John doesn't run it. None of us run it. And the social media guys did a post before the season with a picture of Joe Burrow, and it was like rolling into last place in the AFC North.
He was driving a golf cart, and the caption said, "This is the Bengals rolling into last place."
Well, for whatever reason, a lot of Bengals fans think that I wrote that. They have come after me. But I love it because I think that one of the, a lot of times Browns fans get a ton of credit for being this insane, passionate fan base, and lots of NFL fan bases do, but like, sticking with the team no matter what. I sort of think like Bengals fans might be underrated in that sense. And I kind of wonder what you guys are expecting to see in Los Angeles from Bengals fans. I mean, it's not cheap to get out there. It's not cheap to stay there, but I mean,
not cheap to go to the game.
Not cheap to go to the game. But I always think back to the first Super Bowl that I worked with John in New York, when you got on the ground there and it was Seahawks fans were just swarming New York City. And I sort of wonder if you guys think the Bengals fans, like what we might get from Bengals fans out there, because obviously they're going to be passionate at home.
Go ahead, Anthony.
Oh, sorry.
I'll go ahead and go. I expect to see a lot of orange and black. I know, and I've been looking at prices, and of course, it's just like, wow.
Yeah.
And I'm from there. I go back there on a regular basis. I see what hotels cost. I see what flights cost. But I still believe that there's going to be a lot of orange and black. They're going to find a way to get back there. And I mean, it's been 30 plus years. So I think there's a lot of, I've already talked to a few people that said, I'm taking my kids, and it's not just my son. It's like 3 or 4 kids. We're going back. I know it's crazy, but we're going to make it happen. So I really believe there's going to be a big contingency of orange and black back there.
I look at, during the season when they have the FedEx air and ground, and then they have the rookie of the week. Whenever there's a Bengal up for any of those, they almost win every time. Whether they deserve to win or not.
And that's win. A fan vote. That's to my dad's point. That's a fan vote.
It shows how the Bengal fans really follow the team.
Yeah.
So I expect to be a ton of Bengal fans out there, whether they're at the game or whether they're at a Bengal bar somewhere watching the game.
And it's funny. The great thing about having the two of you on is because outside of Joe Burrow, I would say the two most talked about positions on this team's roster this year have been the kicker and the offensive line. So Dad, and for very opposite reasons. But Dad, I'll start with you because this has been the year of Evan McPherson. Just what are your thoughts on what he's been able to do in the postseason? A history-making postseason, the most kicks without a miss. Hopefully that continues in the Super Bowl and ties Adam Vinatieri's career record for most games with 4 field goals in a playoff game. What is your take on what you've seen from him?
He's my hero. What can I say? Unbelievable. I mean, he's handled things so well. I'm just so impressed. He obviously has a phenomenal leg, and they have a lot of confidence in him. But he steps up time and again and just does a phenomenal job. To me, when I watch him, he reminds me of Justin Tucker in Baltimore, more so than anybody else in the league. So if he's anywhere near as good as Justin Tucker, which he's got to get a number of years certainly, but I think he is pretty close to Justin Tucker. The Bengals have a home run, and they have a home run.
And I mean, did you guys have, Jim, did you turn around or did you look at your teammates and be like, time to go to the Super Bowl, guys? Like right before you're making the big kick? I mean,
I was one of those guys that thought if I did that, I'd probably miss the kick. I'll talk about it after, but it reminds me of we're playing in Atlanta in '81, and their kicker is coming out for the game winner, and it was a big deal for us to have home field advantage. And he's throwing his arms up, trying to get the crowd up, all fired up and everything. And then he went out and missed the kick. So I'd rather do that afterwards. When you can celebrate it. You just go through your routine, and I know that's what Evan's doing, and he's doing it extremely well. He throws an offhanded remark that if he doesn't make the kick, nobody ever says anything about it.
That's right.
Since he made the kick, the quarterback can talk about it, which is awesome.
Well, I don't know if you heard or not, but apparently, I mean, you probably did, but apparently before he made that shot to the kick to go to the Super Bowl, he didn't want to, because they were talking about in the game, Nance and Romo were like, I wonder what he's going to say, Jim. And apparently he didn't say anything. But then right as he's lining up for the kick, Kevin Huber turns around, the holder, he turns around and goes, guess we're going to the Super Bowl. And he said he got a little juiced up because his holder's doing that for him.
The guy is amazing. He is, and he's really a good kid. Texted with him a little bit, and he's very humble, and he's very thankful for where he is, and he's just doing it. Look, I mean, your rookie year, to have a rookie year like this, I mean, how much fun is this? I just hope they get to experience this time and again. I hope his Sunday is as good as it's been the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, here's a quick fun fact for both of you. The last time the Bengals played the Rams in Los Angeles, both of you were on the field. The Bengals won 34-31 in overtime. Dad, you kicked a game-winning field goal, I believe, from like 40-something yards.
Yeah, left hash.
Anthony picked you up.
Yeah, that's right.
No way.
Anthony is a foot taller than you and picked you up after you hit it.
So that was before his bad shoulders and me 50 pounds heavier.
Was that in the Coliseum then?
No, that was actually in Anaheim.
Okay.
And so we were Boomer threw for 490 yards that day. That was the most until Joe Burrow threw for 525 this year.
Oh wow.
It all ties together.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah, if it was in the Rose Bowl, or if it was in the Coliseum, I was gonna ask Anthony about the Rose Bowl in 1980, but because you had played, with first game of the season, you tore your knee, come back for the Rose Bowl, which is, not exactly a thing that the kids do these days. Come back with an injured knee and play in a bowl game, right?
Yeah, actually, the second series of the game, we were playing in Lubbock, Texas, and a defensive back stuck his helmet in my knee and went back to LA and underwent my third knee operation in 4 years. And we had played in 2 Rose Bowls previous, and I'd yet to play. And there was no way that I was going to let Charles White, Brad Buddy, and all those guys leave without playing a Rose Bowl with them. So I was like a madman. I had the surgery, got the backpack. I'd go from class to rehab, lifting weights, and I was married at the time. Then I'd go back to the apartment, do some homework. And that was my routine. And I kept telling the guys, keep winning because I'm going to be with you at the Rose Bowl. And they were like, okay, buddy, we understand. You're nuts, but you're going a little too far on this. And, I became the official spatter. You know how you put the tape around it? I'd be at every game. I'd spat the guys up. I'd be on the sideline rooting for them. And sure enough, we won the Pac-10. We're going to our 3rd Rose Bowl. And, I had been busting it. And I had to convince John Robinson about a half an hour in his office that I was ready to play. And I could see where he was concerned. He wanted me to come back for a redshirt year. I was finishing school. I didn't want no desire to go to grad school. So he goes, okay, get the okay from the doctor and you can start practicing. So I went. The doc said, there's no reason why you can't start practicing. Your left leg is the leg I had it on is now a little stronger than the right. So I got back, told Robinson that, and then he started going through the practice schedule. And he says, we'll let you go through this drill, but not this drill. And after about 3, I said, Coach, every drill you're saying I can go through is a non-contact drill. I said, no. I said, I want to earn my starting. He goes, okay, just go out and go through practice. I made every practice. Now my cardio was like Lance Armstrong because I was riding the bicycle every day. So I got out there. We did like 15 110s after practice. And maybe the first 2 days I struggled a little bit, but then I caught it and I finished all the sprints after the first couple of days. And starting lineup was announced January 1st, and they announced number 77 starting at what tackle. And I think a lot of the fans scratched their head and said, who in the heck is that guy? He hasn't been here all year. And I played the entire game. It was Ohio State. They're number 1. In fact, I should say I played the whole game but 2 plays. I had to come out because I think the second series, I thought I was hyperventilating. I was so geeked up and stuff. So I ran out, kind of took a couple deep breaths. And it's funny, the guy that took my spot for 2 plays was the freshman offensive lineman who's also a Pro Football Hall of Famer, Bruce Matthews. He came in and played 2 plays. And then so I played the entire game, and we drove over 80 yards to score to win the game. But, yeah, so I didn't know what was going to happen after that Rose Bowl. It was the only game I played, and then, of course, the rest is history. The Bengals drafted me and gave me a chance to go to a camp. All I wanted was a chance to go to a camp to see if I could compete on the NFL level, and they gave me 13 camps to go to. So
yeah, it's not over there. Mike Brown and Paul Brown are sitting at one of their houses watching the Rose Bowl, and all they're doing is laughing at Anthony pummeling the guy across from him. And they're trying to figure out why they wouldn't want to, because everybody said, you're crazy. This guy's had 3 knee operations. How could you do this? And it's like, did you see what he just did? And so after they sent Forrest Gregg out and Anthony put him on his rear end, and like, how could you not? I mean, the guy obviously, 13 years later, 11 Pro Bowls, the Hall of Fame. I think they made a pretty good choice.
Yeah, and obviously the Bengals ended up taking him with the 3rd overall pick in 1980, and he became the best left tackle in NFL history. So that pretty much tells itself. But you know what? Since we are talking to the best left tackle in NFL history, it seems like a good time to get your take on the Bengals offensive line play this year, Anthony, because it's been all over the place. It's been patchwork, but it's been like the ship where you just keep putting tape in the holes, and you keep sailing. Somehow you keep going without sinking. So what has your take been on just how they played the season and into the playoffs?
John, I thought it was so good to talk about the Rose Bowl. And McPherson. We were just going to say thanks for doing doing the show, and let's go enjoy a victory. And then we got to talk about the offensive line. No, it has been. It's been consistent. It's been inconsistent. The one, I think, consistent factor that I enjoy and I like is that Frank Pollock is there. And I think his head finally reared up on camera. You saw him this last week screaming and yelling at the guys, and that's just the type he is. But, it's not like they have to read things or hear things. They know what has to happen. They know the task in front of them, Aaron Donald and Von Miller, and, just right down. So they know what they have to do to win the football game. I think this is going to be a key. I think defensively, Cooper Kupp is unbelievable, OBJ and stat, but I think we match up well with them. I just believe that we're going to have to not only physically one-on-one, but schematically with the way we set protections, we're going to have to be able to protect and let Joe utilize. We can't have another 9-sack day like we did in Tennessee, even though looking at the game, I'm going to give 3, maybe 4 to Joe of those 9, but still 6 sacks is a lot for an offensive line. So it's just going to be one of those things where they're just going to have to play out of their minds, and they can do it because they've done it. There's been games where Joe's been, clean, and other games where his name tag is out on the 40-yard line after the game, it's one of those things where I hope that they can bring it together, have 2 weeks to work. And like I said, there's other ways besides just saying, okay, you got him. Make sure that the games, I've noticed a lot of the ETTE games they struggle with at times, that they're going to have to be sharp. They're going to have to be disciplined. They're going to and then setting the protections to help one guy or the other and be able to adjust during the game and not let one guy out there all the time by himself if he's struggling. You're going to have to be able to adjust and make those adjustments.
So we talk all the time about, experience. You guys have Super Bowl experience, right? Like, and I think that matters. I sort of wonder, because it kind of might fly under the radar with these offensive line and defensive line matchups. And Jim, you can go first if you want, but the Bengals offensive line relatively, or really a lot of the Bengals players relatively new. Von Miller has a Super Bowl MVP. Aaron Donald has played in the Super Bowl. Jim, I guess, how much do you think that will matter for the Bengals in terms of this particular game, that experience?
Well, considering what they've already gone through in the playoffs and played 3 games and gone right down to the final gun, I don't think it's going to matter. The one thing I thought, and maybe you'd agree with this, Anthony, is when you're playing, so you get to go to the first round of the playoffs, and you're just continuing to play your season. I don't know that the magnitude of the game, once you're in the game. Now, leading up to it, it's kind of crazy because you have so much more media and there's so much more attention. But when you actually get out in the game and you realize after you're a few minutes in, it's like, all right, this is just another game. And you kind of forget, if you just go out and play your game, then you kind of forget, that it's the Super Bowl because you're just playing a game just like you played every other game. So I think
I agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah. Once they get through the first few minutes, I think they'll be fine. But experiencing what they've already experienced, I think they handle anything. And, Burrow and Chase, those guys play for the national championship.
Yeah.
And, I've always been of the belief that whether you're playing for a high school championship or college or pro, that's the biggest thing you'll ever be a part of at that time. So that college championship was just as big as playing in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So
you got Prince.
Hey,
Jim. Yeah. To your point, Prince at right tackle, Ohio State. Big
right.
Jonah Williams, Alabama. So you got guys that, Carmen, Clemson. So you got guys like you're saying, but so much of the focus is on the skill guys. But those offensive linemen have played in big games. So, but you're right. It's the 2 weeks prior to the Super Bowl where, people are pulling you here, tickets, wanting to do interviews. That's what you have to be able to handle and really keep your focus on getting ready. But once that ball's kicked off, that field's 100 yards. It's 53 yards wide. It's all the same. It doesn't matter if you're in SoFi or Paul Brown Stadium. The dimensions, are still, you got to get 10 yards for a first down. It's just another game. And you can't think about, because you have, a Von Miller, you got an Aaron Donald, you got to think about your job and what you have to do.
So our first Super Bowl 16.
Oh, actually, hold on, Jim.
That's a perfect segue because we're going to talk about that next. We're going to take a quick break. We'll talk about Super Bowl 16. We'll find out why my dad missed my birth, which may or may not have had to do with Super Bowl 16. So we'll be right back.
And that's the break. We build the breaks in for that. Breech, go ahead. John, go ahead. Sorry.
That's it. That's all the break you got. All right, welcome back. Now we are going to talk Super Bowl memories. We talked about this year's team. Now we're going to talk to Bengals Super Bowl past, Super Bowl 16, Super Bowl 23. Let's go back to the very, very first one, the 1981 season. The Super Bowl played in January 1982, obviously against the 49ers. You know what? We'll just start the week before that real quick, since this is a historical game. First, let's start with the Freezer Bowl, the coldest game wind chill wise in NFL history. Negative 58 degrees, I believe, was the wind chill. I think Anthony was out there with no sleeves. My dad's trying to kick a football that felt like a rock. What were your guys' memories of playing in the coldest game essentially in NFL history? Anthony, you're sleeveless. You go first.
I just remember Max Montoya and I roomed together, and my job game day was to open the curtains and to give a weather report. Hey, so I opened the curtains that morning. I said, Max, blue skies, the sun is out. It's a great day for football. Little did we know that my car couldn't turn over. I was going to leave it at the hotel, at the Marriott up on Chester Road, and that it would be the coldest game on record. And I'll tell you what, it was crazy. And I remember we gathered as an offensive line. And mainly, you got your tailored jerseys so the defense can't grab it. And then you wear sleeves, and that gives them material to grab. So we decided it's cold, but we can't wear sleeves. We can't give them material to grab. And people ask me after the fact, did you guys do that to have a psychological edge? And I'm like, you know me. You think I'm thinking psychology going into a football game? Then I say, but when it was all said and done, after we started, I think it did become a psychological edge. And it was just, I tell people it was painfully cold. I don't know how this guy here kicked the football. I don't know how Kenny Anderson threw the football, but they did it effectively, and we won the game.
Now, you did put Vaseline all over your arms, though, didn't you? You were allowed to do
but
that.
It didn't help. We did a pregame warm-up, and it didn't help, so I just like, what the heck? It did. Yeah, we thought it was going to help, but it didn't help.
Because they allow them these days to put Vaseline on their arms, so obviously it's not doing very much. So,
Jim, could you expound on the whole not sticking around for John being born thing?
The AFC Championship was on January 10th, and I was born on January 13th. All right, now you can take it away, Dad.
Let me back up. And so I was riding with Jack Thompson. I ridden to the hotel the night before with Anthony. We were living in the same complex. But I rode in with Jack Thompson because Jack and I were rooming together. Well, just like Anthony's car, his car wouldn't start either. So everybody's just kind of trying to find a way to get down to the stadium. And we're scrounging, right? So we go back inside the hotel and we start asking around. We find a waitress. And it's like, did you drive here this morning?
By the way, you guys are playing in the AFC Championship game.
And cannot get to the game.
Yeah.
Imagine that score today, like the kicker gets a ride with the local wagers to the AFC Championship game.
So this waitress says, yeah, I drove here this morning. Can you give us a ride to the stadium? Like, I guess so. She has a Camaro. So we pile in. And I think there was one other guy with us. I can't remember. But Jack gets up in the front seat with her and she starts driving. And by this time, if we're late, we get fined $50. And fourth grade is going to go crazy for guys showing up late. Jack's like, can you drive a little bit faster? She goes, well, I don't want to get tickets. He goes, pull over. I'm driving. So they switch. Jack flies from there. We get there just a few minutes before 11 o'clock. So about 10 years ago, Jack's back in town. We go have lunch. We go to the maitre d' at this restaurant. She looks at Jack and she says, are you Jack Thompson? And he said, yeah. He goes, my daughter's the one that took you down to the stadium at the Freezer Bowl.
Wow, that's hilarious.
Wasn't that great? So we get to the stadium. We get to the stadium, and we're trying to figure out what to wear, right? Because you got to cover every part of your body. So guys are running around. You can't wear long johns because that's slow you down. Okay for practice, but not for the game. So pretty soon, this couple big old boxes come sliding out in the middle of the floor. And guys are like, what is that? Tom Gray opens them up, and it's pantyhose. Pantyhose. I wore 2 pair of pantyhose. And I had to cut the feet out because I was sliding around in them. I'll tell you what, they saved my legs that day, because it's not like what you have today with all these different high-tech things. That was as high-tech.
That was your Under Armour in 1981.
No, but the best part was trying to see some of those defensive linemen pull those pantyhose on. That's when you wish you had cameras, then.
It really is. I mean, I know that like football is very different back then, but it is like insane to imagine. Can you imagine Joe Burrow not being at Arrowhead on time and he has to go down to the Waffle House or whatever they have in Kansas City? He'd be like, hey, are you Joe Burrow? Yeah, I can give you a ride. And then toss it on some pantyhose. That's incredible. What about
after the game?
Yeah,
we go to the airport. My dad was out for both games, Buffalo and then the Freezer Bowl, which we spent all day Saturday running around downtown trying to find him some warm clothing, and somehow he stuck it out. I don't know how he did. I don't know how anybody in the stands stuck it out. We had the heated benches. I think that might have been the first time heated benches were used. There's a great story with Kenny Henderson. He's got his feet in the heated benches because that's how you get the air going. And something happens, there turnovers, and he jumps up. His foot gets caught. He goes face first. Boom! He said he's seeing stars. He's almost knocked. He would have been a concussion protocol today.
How about the difference in the Super Bowl now? Same sort of thing. Like, back then, obviously the Super Bowl was a big deal. It's a Super Bowl, right? But now it's like, John and I have probably been to what, like 8, 9 of these things, and they've gotten bigger and bigger over the last decade or so. What's the difference how big of a difference is it from what the whole spectacle was in 1980 versus what it is now?
Well, you go out. Well,
hey Jim, how about our tickets at $2,300?
Yeah.
I just read this morning a 30-second commercial, $6.5 million,
and they're sold out.
Yeah.
But the events, the parties, the events, and of course, COVID's kind of put a damper on a lot of that. But once it comes back, there's so many people that go to the Super Bowl site just to enjoy all the festivities and then watch the game at a bar or something. But it's just, and then of course the media outlets and the social, it's just, the coverage is just over the top, and the events around it. It's like, oh, by the way, there's a game Sunday.
Right. Did you guys what was the week of the Super Bowl like in the 80s? It can't have, now it feels like the teams are very, it's probably a result of incidents that have occurred in the past, but it feels like the guys are pretty isolated now versus.
Well, and real quick, before they answer that question, Super Bowl 16. So they went from the negative 58 degrees in Cincinnati. They beat the Chargers 27-7. Super Bowl 16 was the first cold weather Super Bowl location. It was played in Detroit. So, you guys, it's not like you have a beach to look forward to going to. So what was the preparation like?
Let me finish the story about John's birth, though.
Okay, this is a good lead up to that.
We fly back to the Bay Area, and Forrest Gregg said, nobody misses Wednesday's meeting. Nobody. You got to be back for Wednesday's meeting. So I had 2 days for John to be born.
And my mom is in California at this time.
She's in California. I have Monday, Tuesday. So I take the red eye Tuesday night. I fly all night. I get in at like 7 in the whatever it was, 6 or 7 in the morning. I go right to practice, and I haven't heard anything. Go to practice. I come home. Jim Hanula was my roommate. He had knee surgery. So I walk in the door. He says, "Congratulations, you have a new baby boy." So Wednesday, somewhere while I was flying or at practice, John was born, and I made it back for practice on time. But we had several guys that didn't make it because there were some weather issues. I made it cross country. Some other guys, closer by, didn't make it back in time, and Forrest was yelling at everybody, and he didn't want to get Forrest mad.
Nope, not at all.
and in your defense, I've always said that, if you're, look, what, John, what are you? You're the fourth kid?
Fourth kid. First kid's different.
Fourth kid, you make sure you get to practice.
So the thing is, today, you don't miss a birth, right? I mean, you miss games. In those days, you were expected to do your job. You would go to the game. The one before Ruthie, before John, my wife called at 10 o'clock in the morning at the stadium or at the hotel, and she says, "I'm going into labor." I mean, Sunday morning, and we're playing the Seahawks. I was with the Raiders then. If we win the game, we're in the playoffs. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So fortunately, her sister was going to be with her. I went to the stadium. I played because that was, what do you do? There was no other. Ray Guy had a bad knee. He had Cartley's problem, his knee. He could barely punt. He couldn't kick. There was nobody to kick off. There was nobody else to kick. So at halftime, I called the hospital, and I said, "Do you any news?" They said, "Well, if you hurry, you can be on. You can still make it." I said, "Well, I got another half to play." And then in the fourth quarter, an announcement comes over that I have a new baby girl over the intercom at Oakland Coliseum at the time.
So they announced it to the stadium. They're like, "Congratulations to Jim Breech." That's amazing.
60,000 people knew that Ruthie was born.
Well, the crazy thing is you could have just lied to me and said you were. I never would have known the difference.
Yeah.
So, or you could have done what Anthony did and have. I know his son Michael is my age, and he has a summer birthday, right?
He did. He actually. Well, here's the crazy thing about Michael. He was born actually the first day of camp. Which he was supposed to come a week earlier, but didn't. So I left my car season. I left my car with Dee Dee because her mom was out. So I drove up to Wilmington with Max. And that morning I said, "Max, let me just put your keys in my pocket just in case." So we had just gone into our team meeting on Friday night. There's a knock on the door. It's Tom Gray. He looks at me and he goes, and I knew exactly. So I got in Max's truck. I drove down 71. Thank God I made it from Wilmington College to St. E's in Northern Kentucky in about a half an hour and was there for the birth. I hit a bump in the road and I thought my head was going to go through the ceiling, but I made it. So I made it for his birth. And then Michelle was in the off season, but yeah, we were close too. At least it was camp. Forrest let me take that night and spend the night and miss that first day of practice. So that was kind of him.
See, Dad, that's smart planning. 2 kids in the off season, 5 years, 6 kids were dead in the middle of the season.
Right.
I know. What can I say? Yeah.
So real quick, we'll do Super Bowl 16 real quick with 26-21 loss. We all know that you fell behind 20-0. I guess I'll just there aren't many super fantastic memories for Bengals fans, so I'll just ask you, Dad, on your end, opening kickoff of the game. This is one of my favorite stories. You're out. That's probably not your favorite story that. You go out there. If this is on TV, if this happens in Super Bowl Sunday this year, this will be like the trending on Twitter. Number one, you kick the opening kickoff out of bounds, but then they have you re-kick it, and then the 49ers fumble it, and the Bengals recover. Is that go through that?
Yes. Well, so we're kicking off, and we always tried to kick it left to kind of hem them into a corner, and I pulled it a little bit, and the ball boom goes out of bounds. Unlike today, where it comes out to the 40-yard line, you had to re-kick it. So we took 5 yards. I re-kick it. We tackle them on the 25-yard line. They fumble. So I kind of made up for it. But the worst part is
you put the knuckleball on it so they'd fumble.
The worst part is these guys have to run down all the way down the field.
Oh, man.
And they have to turn around and come back and do it again. And they're like, "Don't be kicking them out of bounds anymore." So it worked out. And then, unfortunately, about third down, I think Kenny threw an interception to White Hicks. He wasn't even supposed to be there. He just jumped the route. He was out of position, but he guessed, and he guessed right.
And then I guess that was the low point of the first half, and the low point of the second half. Anthony, you could probably walk us through this one. The Bengals maybe could have come back third quarter, the goal line stand. You guys are at the 1 yard line, 4 chances to punch it in. And the 49ers obviously stopped you guys. What do you remember of that sequence in that situation?
Well, I think we have to add a little more to that first half. That interception, of course, there's 2 squib kicks that gave them 2 field goals to take a 20-0 lead. And that really hurt, the 2 squib kicks that we could not field. But we came out the second half, and we pretty much were dominating the game. I mean, I think at one point we had 8 to 10 first downs. They didn't have any. I mean, we were just rolling, and then, we're down, and we had the ball on the 1 yard line. I mean, 4 cracks at the 1 yard line. And if I was a betting man with Pete Johnson as a fullback, I would have put a lot of money to say we would either scored on the first or second down. And just the breakdowns we had. I mean, the guy in motion misses a guy coming off the corner. Here, how about this? You got a 200. What was Alexander? 235, Jim?
Yeah.
You have a flare pass, and you have a linebacker, and it might have, I don't know, he might be a great guy, but was that the only play that Dan Bunch made in his career when he hit Charles Alexander and took him straight down? Charlie hit somebody, and he usually falls forward a yard or two. And then, of course, the other four cracks at the 1 yard line, and that was really all they needed. All they did was kick 2 field goals in the second half, and they ended up winning. But it was those 2 squib kicks that really, and then the goal line stance, and that was, you see Jack Reynolds and Ronnie Lott and those guys and Dwayne Board. I mean, that's still the nightmare of the game.
On that play with Charlie, when they ran the bootleg, and Charlie, he's supposed to go into the end zone about a yard, and he turned up just in front of the end zone. And the throw, Kenny's throw, all these things have to work together, right? Yep. Kenny's throw was, instead of being out in front of him where his momentum could take him in, it was behind him a little bit, so he had to turn around, so he didn't have any momentum to run over Buns. Yeah. So several years ago, I'm out in Sacramento. I traveled the farthest to go this. My former roommate, when I was with the Raiders, he had a ministry and a golf tournament raising money. So a bunch of guys were there, and they had to sign these helmets. And Dan Buns was there, and on it, he puts, talk about his only play, the stop.
Oh, wow.
He's known for the stop, and that was the play, stopping Charles Alexander on the half-yard line.
Dan Buns drives around in a Camaro, and his license plate is like the stop or something.
Probably. But, what can we say? He made the play.
The stop sign by his house, he painted.
It's just a picture of Dan Buns.
So you look at 16, we get out there, and it's like it was at the Freezer Bowl. It's probably 25 below. Yeah. The parking lot is all ice.
Yeah.
And we can't go, we literally can hardly move. So we go, and I was rooming with Chris Collinsworth. So we're stuck in our rooms, and pretty soon, so a week before, he was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. I'm his secretary. The phone is ringing like it. Yes. Is Chris Collinsworth there? Is Chris there? Oh, this is, I'm a Dallas Cowboy cheerleader. Oh, hi, I've got a limo outside. I'd like to take Chris out. This went on. And fortunately for him, he just kind of stayed there and laughed. He didn't do anything, but I bet I took 50 calls from women wanting to have a date with Chris Collinsworth. But my favorite story, so this is when I was still drinking beer occasionally. We go to a bar. It's Chris, Turk Schonert, and me. So we're at this bar. I'm over playing pinball. Some guy walks up to Chris. Now, Chris is 6'5", I'm 5'6", right? He walks up to Chris. He says, "Hey, are you Jim Breech?" Chris says, "What? No." Guy leaves. A few minutes later, he walks back. "Are you Jim Breech?" And Chris says, "No, he's over there." So he comes walking over as I'm playing pinball. He looks at me. He says, "Are you Jim Breech?" I look, I said, "Yeah." He looks at me, he says, "No way, you're too small," and he leaves.
That's great.
And by the way, my dad is 5'6". Anthony's a full foot taller. Anytime you see them next to each other on the football field, it is a hilarious dynamic.
And also like that foot, as someone who is also in that same range as Jim, it feels more like 3.5 feet when you're looking at someone who's 6'6".
Well, I spent my whole life in these locker rooms, and no wonder I have a crick in my neck from what I look up to talk to anybody.
Yeah. So Super Bowl 16. That was John Madden's first Super Bowl as a commentator, and a very, very interesting game, but not as crazy as your guys' second Super Bowl 23. It's kind of nuts because leading up to that game, I mean, you guys, there were riots in Miami near the hotel. So you guys had did you have like a curfew? Like, what were the rules leading up to the game when you guys were down there? Anthony, you can go first.
Yeah. So, it's amazing. You could look out the window and you saw fires, because they were burning stuff. And I mean, I remember my family was there. We pretty much, guys knew where to hang out, where not to hang out. I didn't really go around that because I had family from California and I had my immediate family. But it was pretty intense, that whole city, with the riots, and you saw things burning in the city. But yeah, it was a lot nicer than Pontiac, that's for sure. 80 degrees. It was nice to go to practice and just wear a jersey, not have to bundle up. But even though we're indoors in Pontiac, you still bundled up on your way there. But, the weather was nicer, but you had a lot of tension, a lot of things going on in the city that weren't very nice.
So just looking at our hotel room, you could see the fires. I mean, they were maybe a mile away, less than a mile from our hotel. I remember somebody sent me one of those tins of popcorn and sitting outside my door, and I get back and I've got a note. So I'm supposed to check with security. I checked with security and said, what's going on? Well, somebody sent you popcorn, but we thought it was kind of suspicious. So we went and blew up your popcorn. They blew it up. They thought it was a bomb. Or they brought the bomb squad in and they took care of it. But yeah, I never did get whoever sent me the popcorn. I appreciate it, but I never got any of it.
That is nuts.
The Tuesday of that week, we had about 10 or 12 guys go play golf, and we jump in a bus, and we've got a police escort. So here we are, 10 or 12 guys in this bus, police escort. People are moving off the road so we can go play golf. It's like, wow, this is crazy. But Anthony, isn't that when you went deep sea diving in Wendell? And why don't you tell them that story about Wendell?
No, that was in Hawaii. This was a pro. This one, Bruce Kazurski and I got a boat, went out tarpon fishing. We didn't catch anything, but I tell you what, it was really relaxing, man. We just laid there, and there was another boat that caught a tarpon, so we got to see what it looked like. But we went out for a couple hours tarpon fishing, just Kaz and I, and it was a nice getaway.
Those police escorts, man, are something else. I remember my first Super Bowl was in Dallas for the Packers Steelers, and all the ice around Dallas, which Texans have no idea how to deal with. And they had us on a bus, all these media members on a bus with a police escort, forcing Dallas residents to pull off on the side of the road in the ice. And they're like, who's this? The King of England? It's like, no, actually, it's a CBS, like CBS bloggers. Like it's nobody. Like
it's a media bus.
Yeah, what's funny is it's one thing to be on the bus, it's being escorted, but I experienced in the last 2 years getting down to the Bengals stadium just as the visiting team's coming by, and the traffic is all stopped. So you get all backed up waiting for the bus to go by. So I've been on both sides. I prefer the one with the escort.
Definitely. And you guys, that was a whole wild thing, not just the riots, but obviously the night before the game, Stanley Wilson has a drug situation. So one of your starting fullback basically can't play, which is just unheard of for something like that to happen the night before Super Bowl. Did you guys think that had like an emotional impact or maybe just an impact of losing, a lead blocker for your Icky Woods and for your running backs? What kind of impact did you guys think that had on the game, Anthony?
Well, offensively, we really didn't look at him as a lead blocker because he ran the offense as well as Icky and JB. I mean, he was a big part of what we did offensively, carrying the football in addition to being a pretty good blocker. Anytime one of your teammates, your brotherhood goes through something like that, it's going to affect you. I mean, you want to play in the biggest game, the Super Bowl, but man, that drug, that disease got him, and it got him that night. And you just, you think about it, and it was a big emotional blow, because it's just like, here's a guy that has struggled with it, and it got him the night before the biggest game in anybody's football career, playing in the Super Bowl. So, yeah, I thought, and again, we still had JB and Icky, but, as an offensive line, we didn't play that well to begin with. But, I think having Stanley would have added to our offensive firepower, and the guy was an amazing running back.
So you got to imagine he was tested 2 or 3 times a week from like the previous February, all the way through the season, up until that happens the night before the game. So we're in a special teams meeting. So we had moved hotels. So, and it wasn't easy finding these rooms. So guys straggled in a little bit late. We're sitting in there, and it's like 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And finally we get started with the meeting. And then a few minutes later, here comes Sam walking in. And Sam is up there, and he's crying. He said, Stanley didn't make it. Stanley didn't make it. He had a relapse. And it was like, wow. But the other part is you almost have to kind of compartmentalize it, because you still have to go out and play the next day. So we wanted to do as much as we could to win the game. And Stanley would have been a huge, huge part of it. The unfortunate thing is he has struggled with that from then on.
So, obviously everybody outside of Cincinnati remembers this as the Joe Montana, John Taylor. I saw John Candy in the end zone. I threw a 10-yard touchdown pass to win the game. Anthony, what do you remember most from the Super Bowl? Second half, you had to feel pretty strongly that you guys that was a team you could beat, despite the fact they have future Hall of Famers like Jerry Rice. They have a collection. You guys have one, so how were you feeling in the second half of that game?
Well, we might only have one Hall of Famer, but I thought we matched up talent-wise. I mean, any position, we were very talented. Our defense had given up a lot of yards, but really held them from getting into the end zone. I think Jerry Rice had over 200 yards, so you're expecting him to make the catch. And again, we moved the ball, and we're probably doing this interview here with the MVP of the Super Bowl if we hold on, your dad Jim. But it was just 92 yards and 3 minutes left. You're thinking, okay, they've moved the ball, but maybe our defense, and you're sitting there thinking, man, if I only had some pass rushing skills, then I could get in there and help our guys. But it was you're helpless as an offensive player, because you're sitting there watching Joe Montana and those guys move down. And I mean, the guy that you least expect to catch the ball, John Taylor, makes a catch, and it's like, wow. And it was like a dagger going in, even though we had 34 seconds, not a whole lot of time, that they score going 92 yards. So it was the closer they got, the more you think, okay, well, hopefully they score and we get more time than just 34 seconds.
And it's crazy because you mentioned Dan Buns earlier. That was the play of his career. If you ask him the highlight of his career, it's that play. And I'm sure if you ask John Taylor,
only catch he had that game.
These two guys come up with one huge play. And Dad, Anthony just mentioned that you probably would have been the MVP. 3 field goals. The last one with just over 3 minutes left. You put the Bengals up 16-13 over the 49ers.
And Boomer has said as much too. Either on his radio show or
Inside the NFL, he said
the NFL that Jim would have been the MVP.
So what's your mindset? We've seen Evan McPherson kick so many big kicks, and we talk about kickers a lot on this show. But what are you thinking? What's going through your head when you're trying a kick with 3 minutes left in the Super Bowl that's going to put your team ahead and might win you the game?
So right before we leave for the Super Bowl, Tiger Johnson was one of our special teams. He helped in different special teams. And he's telling a story about 1982 when he was coaching Detroit. And they got a bonus if they go to the NFC Championship game. And Eddie Murray missed the field goal that would have put him in the NFC Championship game. And as he starts talking about Eddie Murray, he just starts kind of goes off. He starts spitting, and it just every cuss word you can think of starts coming. And the more he talks about it, the angrier he gets. And he's going on and on about Eddie Murray and taking my $25,000 out of my pocket. So I'm standing aside. I hear Sam say, "Let's make sure we get the field goal out of this." And it just pops in my. Normally, I don't do this. Pops in my head. Man, if I miss this kick, Tiger's going to be pissed.
Oh no!
I had to put that out of my head really quickly. But you know, I went out there, and the funny thing was, where I kicked it from, I had hit a few balls from almost the identical spot the day before. I'm like, I've been here, I've done this. The thing was, it was really a windy night. The goalpost, which way I was kicking, the net had got caught up in the goalpost in warm-ups. So there was some wind involved. And I played it like right center, and it kind of moved left, came in nicely. I come running off the field, and I kind of high-fiving guys, and Chris Collinsworth comes up. He says, "Hey, great kick." He says, "Too much time for 16. And I've been thinking that too. And again, I mean, they got to go 92 yards, right? And any defense out there is going to say, yeah, we can stop them. So the way I look at this, it took one of the greatest quarterbacks, one of the greatest receivers, one of the greatest coaches in the history of the league to beat us in those last 34 seconds.
Yep, exactly.
I mean, probably top. I mean, top number one receiver of all time. Probably, I mean, definitely a top 3 coach, and probably a top 3, if not top 2 quarterback. I mean, that's a pretty ridiculous combination.
Yeah, but we did have the MVP quarterback that year in Boomer.
That's right.
So it wasn't like we didn't match up pretty well. We had some great receivers. Eddie Brown was phenomenal, and you know, Chris was still playing well. So yeah, we matched up.
Rodney
really well
Holman, as good as they get at tight end.
Oh yeah.
I mean, are these Super Bowls? You know, the bottom line is they just come. I mean, football comes down to very small moments and key plays. I mean, Tom Brady could be 1-8 in the Super Bowl, or you know, I mean, 9-0. I mean, it's crazy, you know. And I would imagine that this coming Super Bowl is going to come down to some, you know, some small moments, some key decisions. What do you guys, Anthony? I'll start with you. What, you know, I mean, we don't really need you to make a pick because we know who you're going to pick. But like, I'm just, I mean, I'm curious. So, how do you think the game plays out, and what do you know? What if you were picking like a final score or?
Well, I mean, I talked about it. I mean, it all depends on how we do up front. I mean, I really think if we do, we can score 28 on these guys. I really do. And I've been saying I'm going to go. You know, I usually don't do very well, but I'm going to say 28-24 Bengals.
Ooh, I like it, Dad.
I expect it to be probably a 3 or 4. You know, it's going to be a close game. And now, you know, Bengals, I don't know about a score. I think it's going to be similar to maybe that, what Anthony's saying, but maybe even a little lower. You know, something 24-21, 24-20, maybe even 2017, like the game they had against the 49ers. It's, you know, it's so hard to tell. And then, you know, they're pretty good. Both have good defense. Sometimes you have a breakout game all of a sudden.
Yeah,
you know, the offenses go crazy, or maybe vice versa. So I just think either way it goes, it's going to be a close game.
And by the way, two NC State guys, Jermaine Pratt, BJ Hill, making plays for that.
Absolutely,
that Cincy defense.
We'll get you out here. 2 quick questions, real quick. You mentioned Chris Collinsworth, Dad. He is going to be on the call Sunday for NBC. Have either of you guys talked to him at all this week, or exchanged text messages or anything?
I have not.
No. And you know, it's funny. People give him a lot of heat here in Cincinnati because they say he's really negative, and then you hear other people saying he's too positive for, you know, no matter what he does, it's not going to be right. But, you know, people say some of the former players are hard on the team. All we care about is that they win. And if we're talking about the team, all we're doing is by observation, what we're seeing. We're not saying this guy's bad or this guy's not. All we're saying is this is what we're seeing. And what we're seeing right now is awesome.
And then last one. Were you guys secretly hoping that the Bengals were going to play the 49ers?
Not me. No, for no other reason. I just wanted them to get there and play whoever won and win the game. That was my thinking. You know, if it was close to, you know, and the DeBartolos were still owners, and, you know, some of the players, maybe, yeah, but I mean, it's a different ownership. It's a different regime. So I was just rooting for them to get there, and whoever got there on the NFC, that was fine with me.
Yeah, you texted me, asked me what percentage from 1 to 10. I think I said a 3 that I wanted to play somebody else. But then the more I thought about it, I said, well, like Anthony's saying, first get there. If they get there, I don't care who they play. And
Yeah.
Obviously, it's going to be the Rams, which is, with Whitworth there.
Oh, yeah. The Whitworth
McKay and Taylor connection. So it works out pretty well.
Yep.
All right, guys.
I had a big bet before the playoffs on the Bengals 49ers Super Bowl. So I'm extremely disappointed. You have one more. Do you think anyone on this Cincinnati team will bust out the Icky shuffle if they score a touchdown?
Maybe.
Well, did you see when Joe gave Icky a hug after the game?
No, I missed that.
You noticed that?
The Chiefs
He gave
game, right?
a half shuffle.
He did?
The highlight. Watch the highlight when they hug on this. Joe Burrow gave it a half shuffle. You got to check it out.
Right.
So he might bust it out.
That's good on him for knowing his Bengals football history and busting it out halfway. So now we got to cheer for a Joe Burrow QB sneak into the end zone. Guys, thank you so much for coming on. That is Pro Football Hall of Famer, best left tackle of all time, Anthony Munoz, and my dad, Bengals all-time leading scorer, Jim Breech. For Will Brinson, I am John Breech. We have so much Super Bowl content coming over the next week. Talk to you guys later.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.